Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard presented by RDSC, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. And today we have two subjects that we are going to talk about. We're going to be talking about the NBA versus tanking, and then we are going to talk about contender levels for each of the playoff/play-in teams in the NBA right now. First, starting off with the plans to enact anti-taking rules next year in the NBA. So Adam Silver has been talking about this for basically all year, but he's been talking about it the last couple of years of enacting tanking rules against teams like the Kings, the Wizards, the bottom teams in the NBA, from stopping them from pushing to get the first overall pick and getting the best odds they can get. First off, I'm going to say tanking is a part of basketball. I am not on the side of adding all these anti-tanking rules. It's, in my opinion, it's bad for basketball to not have tanking teams because we'll get in that. But I'm just going to read some of the rules that might be established next year. This comes from a meeting that Adam Silver had with the 30 general managers. I believe this was like during All-Star weekend. It might have been like the week after that. But the first rule, first-round draft picks can be protected only top 4 or top 14 plus selections. Lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. No longer allowing a team, this is a new subject, no longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. Next one, teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. Lottery extended to include all play-in teams. And then flattened odds for all lottery teams. I don't like a single one of these ideas that Adam Silver proposed for a multitude of reasons in each one. First off, just talking about the first-round draft picks where you can only protect them either top 4 or top 14 plus selections. That's just people are just going to not trade their draft picks. And trading draft picks is how we get these teams like the Warriors, who get a Chris Paul and after they trade away Jordan Poole. Teams just aren't going to trade away their draft picks. They're going to be scared. They're going to sit on their draft picks, and you're not going to see teams build in a random year like how the Wizards have done this year, where they've traded a bunch of draft picks, not their own, but a bunch of draft picks to just try and get something going in the right direction for the next season. It's just a poor idea to limit the amount of protections you could have on draft picks. I've also heard people talking about like maybe we just eliminate protections on picks in general. That, again, you can't control injuries, and that's the best thing about the NBA, and it's different from the NFL, where in the NFL, if you trade your first-round pick, you trade your first-round pick. In the NBA, you could trade your first-round pick, but if you're worried about an injury, you can top 5 protect it. You can lottery protect it. That's important for the game of basketball as just a whole. It's something that I think people kind of overlook, and how we get like some of these draft picks that they take 5 to 10 years to actually like go to an NBA team. Like one of the first one that popped to mind is the Chicago Bulls right now. They own the Portland Trailblazers first round pick, but that's only if they make the playoffs. And that stays until Portland makes the playoffs. So Chicago's hoping that Portland this year can make the playoffs through the play-in. If that wasn't the case, Chicago Bulls fans wouldn't have anything to really cheer about right now, outside of just losing games and continuing to raise your lottery odds, which you're trying to take away. It's just something that it's an important piece of basketball. It kind of gets overlooked by a lot of like everyday casual fans, but the protections on picks are super important, especially if you're a team that's in like a weird position where you want to be competitive, like the Wizards, for example. There's a chance that if they traded away one of their first round picks, they could have been like, let's do top 5, top 7 protected. Just in case. I don't think we're going to be top 7. I don't think we're going to be a top 7 draft pick. But just in case we are, in case like an Anthony Davis and Trae Young get injured next year, like that's something that we've seen before, then you just basically get rid of any chance the Wizards had of keeping their draft pick. And it's not fair to just be like it's only top 4 or top 14 plus. So I'm not a big fan of that. Lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. This one's an interesting one because the only thing with adding the lottery odds freezing at an earlier point is you're going to get teams tanking way earlier in the season. Now, you do get that tanking early on, but after the lottery odds are frozen, you could see some teams be like, yeah, we want to win some games. We want to maybe try to push for the play-in if we're a bottom team. But most likely the teams that are in the bottom 3, they're not going to be in contention to be in the playoffs after the trade deadline or whatever the later date is decided on. So, again, it's a smart idea. I kind of like the idea of it because you see like a team, like if we just go based off like the NBA standings right now, you could see like a team maybe like Memphis, who they're young. They have a lot of young pieces. They traded away Jaren Jackson Jr. They're sitting at right now the 11th seed in the Western Conference. They're 6 games back from the Clippers for the 10th seed. Their lottery odds, it's not great, but they still have better lottery odds than any of the teams above them in the standings. So they could still push to try and make the play in. So some of their young guys like Cedric Howard and Jalen Wells could get some more run in the playoffs or play in and try to actually compete for something later on in the season. That is an interesting. I think that's the most interesting idea that they've come out with for this whole thing. I'm still not a big fan of it, to be honest, because, like I said, you're just going to get people tanking at an earlier date. If teams know that, yeah, we're not going to be competing for a championship, we're most likely not even going to be competing for a play-in spot or a playoff spot, we're just going to tank from basically game 1 of the NBA season. Maybe they'll let the first month roll out and see what happens after that. But then after October, November, December, January, and then February up until the trade deadline, they're going to be tanking. And that's even worse for the NBA season because now you have the in-season tournament also going on with tanking. It's just a bad position to be in. I like the idea of freezing lottery odds at a certain point, but maybe you keep that point to a minimum of what people know it. Like maybe you just do the NBA officials know it, so they have the knowledge, but the owners, the GMs, the coaches, the players don't know when the lottery odds freeze. I think that's something interesting that they can maybe implement with that rule, but again, it's not a rule that has a perfect outcome with tanking. Next up, no longer allowing teams to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. This, in my opinion, is one of the worst rules that they enacted, or that they're having conversations about enacting. Not once, I'm not going to say not once, but a majority of the time, if a team is in the top 4, they're a bad team to the point where they're going to be back in the lottery, maybe back in the top 4 the next year. The rookie that they draft is not going to change that. If they get just looking at the Sacramento Kings right now. Yes, you look at them, they got DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis if they come back. If we land Darren Peterson next year, he does not change this team to being a play-in team. We're going to be back in the lottery odds, and then we have no chance at maybe maybe we're 7th in odds. We then have no chance of getting top 4, even though we're not good enough to be in the play-in. We're not bad enough to be a top 4 pick, but maybe we have a chance of jumping up. You just limit the idea of people going to watch the draft lottery and having hope that their team could maybe jump up. It's not a good idea to add. And consecutive bottom 3 finishes, maybe. I can maybe see that. But the only thing that I see with these bottom 3 finishes is, what if there's a chance that a team, I'm just going to do the Kings as an example once again, because they're the worst team in the NBA right now. What if we draft Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa and we're a bottom 3 team, and then we go into next year and there's a bunch of injuries that hit us? So we're sitting right back at the bottom 3 team in the NBA because we don't have a lot of great depth pieces. I like our young guys, but we don't have a lot of great depth pieces. Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, if we bring back Russell Westbrook, all those guys get injured. Now, again, we're in a position where we're going to be a bottom 3 team, but we're going to be a bottom 3 team and be forced out of the top 4 when we have an aging team that's injury prone and there's nothing to be hopeful about. Like, still the 6th, 7th, 8th, 5th pick is still very important. These are great players, but they're not the top of the top. So, again, in a perfect world, yes, this makes sense. A rookie first overall pick, Darren Peterson, Cooper Flagg comes into a team that, I mean, Cooper Flagg's a little different because his team isn't exactly a bottom 3 team that he came into, but Darren Peterson, whatever team he's going to go into, that team's most likely not going to be a surefire, not bottom 3 team. So adding this, you have to pretty much assume that the bottom 3 are going to be completely different the next year around, which over the last couple of years has not been happening. And we saw and the teams that jump up like San Antonio or Dallas. Now Dallas, you're telling them that they weren't tanking. They were in the play-in last year. They jump up, get Cooper Flagg. Now injuries and trades and having to move on from players. Now they're sitting in a position where they could be, again, another top lottery pick by jumping up. They're not forcefully tanking. They're just not a good basketball team right now. And now you give them no hope of trying to jump up in the draft and building around Cooper Flagg, and you get a Darren Peterson and Cooper Flagg. It's just, again, not a perfect world that we live in a perfect league where everything goes the right way. There's no injuries. So it's, once again, a terrible, not a terrible idea because I see some of the pros and some of the cons to it. So I'm not going to say terrible. I'm not going to say perfect. But again, it's just not a good rule to implement, in my opinion. Next up, teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals. This feels like a one-off thing. You're looking at the Indiana Pacers. And I'm going to talk about the Indiana Pacers in something else with tanking in just a second once we go over all these rules. But top 4 the year after making the conference finals. This Indiana Pacers team was 3 quarters away from winning the NBA Finals if Tyrese Haliburton does not go down with an injury. And their big man that was there his whole career decided to leave. And now you're there with Pascal Siakam. Andrew Nembhard's been banged up all year long. They traded away Benedict Mathurin. You do add Ivica Zubac, but he's injured. We'll see how the injury actually is. But once again, this is not something that you can predict. We couldn't have predicted that Tyrese Haliburton was going to tear his Achilles and this team was going to drop to the bottom of the conference because they're just not good enough without Tyrese Haliburton. They just don't have enough players on their team that are winning you basketball games. They have Pascal Siakam, who's a great player. He's been killing it all year long. But Pascal Siakam at this point is not a great enough player to just win you a game, win you 30 games to push you out of the bottom. It's, once again, it's not a perfect world we live in. There are examples of this that happen, and really, it's just kind of poking at the one-off thing that's happened in the last 10 years of the Indiana Pacers. Next up, lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. Once again, this is kind of a brain-dead idea because, in my opinion, this is just going to have teams tanking for 2 years in a row to get one draft pick. So, again, don't like it because now you're basing lottery and tanking off of a 2-year span instead of just a one-off year where a team that goes through injuries, struggles to start the season, is now tanking. Now you're going to have teams that just know they're not good enough, like the Brooklyn Nets or the Washington Wizards or the Sacramento Kings. Now this year and then next year is going to allocate their odds for 2 years from now. Again, that's just, you're going to have them tanking for 2+ years, and that's going to be bad for basketball in your opinion. So, again, not a good idea. Lottery extended to include all play-in teams. I'm not a huge, I don't disagree with this a lot. I do believe that the lottery odds should just be with the teams that aren't in the playoffs. So I don't believe that the team that gets the 8th and gets the 7th seed should then also be included in the lottery, because you did make the playoffs, and throughout NBA history, it's always been the teams that don't make the playoffs get the lottery odds. And once again, if you believe in conspiracy theories and the NBA being rigged, you're just going to see a team that's the 8th seed, like Charlotte this year, if they make the 8th seed. Now the NBA is going to be like, oh, they have a 1% chance. If you believe in all that conspiracy theories and the NBA being rigged, now you're going to be like, yep, this team that had a 0.5% chance somehow jumped to get the number 1 seed because they're a big market and they want to see the best players in the draft go to this team, even though they were just in the playoffs. They don't deserve to have the number 1 player. Again, it's just going to give more people and something to be like, is the NBA rigged? So, again, not a terrible idea, but there's pros and cons, and a lot more cons to the pros of this one. And then the final one, the flattened odds for all lottery teams. They did this long ago, and the biggest conspiracy theory, the biggest rigged moment in NBA history happened when all the lottery teams had flattened odds. And if you know what I'm talking about the Patrick Ewing draft, 1985, I believe, where every team in the lottery all had the same draft odds to land the first overall pick. And they put them all in this big ball with envelopes. And the conspiracy, the NBA being rigged moment, is that the Knicks, biggest market in basketball, wanted to get them a huge name, get the best college player in a long time in Patrick Ewing, add him. And they added weight. They made the weight of the envelope of the New York Knicks heavier, so it would be the bottom of the barrel when they picked it to be the first overall pick. So again, if you want to seem like you're not a rigged league where people think that, like the Cooper flag, everybody thinks that it was rigged because they had one of the lower chances to land Cooper flag. Again, this does not help because now everybody has the same odds, so you can't just be like, this doesn't make any sense. Why does the team that has a 0.5% chance get the number 1 overall pick, even though they are clearly better than us as a basketball team? So, again, not a perfect thing. This is, again, one of it. It would be interesting to see them maybe implement it for a year, but I think there's just too much conspiracies around having a flat and odd lottery system, because then it's just going to be like everybody that doesn't get the first overall pick, if it's a team that in the regular draft lottery like we have today has the lowest percentage chance to get it, everybody's going to be like, yep, this was rigged from the very beginning. They were going to get it no matter what. So, once again, not a great idea. And then the thing I wanted to talk about with the Pacers was the fact that they just got fined $100,000 by the NBA. And there's a little bit of a mixed conversation behind it. Rick Carlisle said that the NBA doctors and officials never talked to him, never talked to Aaron Nesmith, who is the player that is involved in this $100,000 fine by the NBA for violating the league's player participation policy. Aaron Nesmith hurt his ankle. They then asked somebody in the organization if they were going to do treatment or medication for his injured ankle, and they said no. We're 30 games under 500. What's the point? Aaron Nesmith's not going to win us a game no matter what. So, and then the NBA came out and they said that they did speak to the GM and the president of basketball operations, I believe, and they stated their opinion, and then the NBA basically said that they had enough evidence after not even having to talk to Aaron Nesmith or the doctors of the Indiana Pacers. So, again, this whole tanking thing, I think they're ramping it up too much to where teams are, at this point, like we've seen a lot of people do, they've done these random shutdowns of NBA players, and now it's like you can't really be questioning them because they're already shut down for the season. They're already getting a surgery, so you can't be like, oh, you can't get that surgery, you're getting back on the court. Zach LaVine's done for the year for the Kings. Domantas Sabonis is done for the year. And then you have some very clear ones of NBA teams just kind of working around the rules, and that's the use of Nurkic, where he's shut down for the rest of the year. He's getting surgery on his nose, which it came out that he's had a broken nose for 3 seasons, and he's been playing through it. So we'll see if the NBA decides to fine them for that. But again, and the final thing I want to say about tanking, if the NBA truly wants to fight against tanking, the biggest thing you have to do is attack the pockets of the owners of these teams. You have to attack them. I get when they fine teams, the owner does officially have to pay that. But I think there's other ways that you could go about it. Since every team splits the CBA, what if there's an idea that if you are a tanking team and you're clearly tanking, like shutting guys down for the rest of the season despite them not truly being injured, like Yusuf Nurkic and now Lauri Markkanen, who's got a hip injury and an ankle injury in practice, and the NBA sent their doctors to go see him. We'll see what comes from that. I think you take away some of their cut from the CBA. Now, Adam Silver obviously works for the NBA and the NBA owners as the commissioner, so the owners are really the people that control how tanking is going to be handled. Now, one of the most annoying things about this whole thing is teams like Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder, Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns, calling out tanking, saying tanking's for losers, going to the NBA, kind of like tattletelling, snitching on other teams for tanking. Sam Presti, first off, has no room to talk because he's built pretty much his whole team off of other teams tanking. So, again, why are you doing all that? If the Clippers were actively tanking right now to get a better draft pick, even though you own their draft pick, you would not be out there saying, "Oh, this team's tanking, you need to go investigate them." No, that's just something you wouldn't be doing. So, Matt Ishbia, Sam Presti, anybody in these organizations that's kind of calling out tanking is a part of the game. And teams are going to find a way to work around the rules that get implemented. It's just something that has always been a part of basketball. And really, I don't think tanking is that big of a deal, because with tanking teams, you get to see things like at the trade deadline, teams selling their players so they're bad to end the year. And you get to see a lot of player movement at the trade deadline from teams that aren't good. Now, some teams recently haven't been doing that, like the Pelicans, but they don't have their first-round pick this year, so there's no point of trading away their guys to be bad. They're just a bad team. The Kings obviously didn't get to trade away any of their guys other than Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, but that's something that is a part of tanking that is important for basketball. We get to see a lot of guys that are on bottom teams in the NBA, not really ever on mainstream media or on live televised games like a Keon Ellis, and because he's been spending his whole career in Sacramento outside that 1 year where we were good. You get to add more people to the realm of the NBA society of casual fans knowing these guys that aren't true like number one options, guys that are coming off the bench, but they're huge sparks. It's something that is important for the NBA, is to have tanking teams, have teams trading away their players to be bad, shutting guys down, benching people in the fourth quarter like the Kings have been doing. That's just something that's part of basketball. And really trying to attack tanking, in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of backlash from it. I know a lot of people want to complain about tanking right now, but then they're just going to instantly start complaining even more once the tanking rules are enacted, whatever one it is, whatever rule it is. So, once again, NBA, as fans, nobody's ever going to be happy. But the NBA just needs to realize that we've gone through however many years since the NBA lottery has been added in, and it's worked perfectly. We're still in a parity, especially right now. We're in a league that is full of parity after going through like a full decade of seeing LeBron in the finals every year and the Cavs-Warriors rivalry for like 4 years straight. And so this is a good thing to have these teams that get the first overall pick from tanking, and they get this guy that's next up and coming, like the Pistons, how they got Cade and Duran and Asar, and you got teams like the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper. Those teams really built a lot of their things off tanking, especially the Pistons. The Spurs, not as much, but even like the Hornets, LaMelo Ball was a top pick. Con Knipple was a top pick. Brandon Miller was a top pick. Teams build off tanking. We don't want to see teams that are built off free agency where we get a super team. So you have to allow tanking to be added to the NBA, because this is how you get teams like the Pistons, who are at times America's sweetheart team that everybody wants to see win, because they're not the average team that we saw for 10 years straight, where it's KD going to the Warriors, LeBron going to the Heat, LeBron going back to the Cavs with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, and that's not what the NBA fans want to see. Obviously, it brings a lot of money to the NBA for having those teams that are built off of the free agency because they're bigger names. But true NBA fans and true NBA media and the NBA as a whole wants to see teams like the Pistons and the Spurs, who are built off the draft, be top teams in the NBA because those teams have true fan bases that are always going to be sticking around. So, once again, I'll reiterate, tanking is a part of basketball. Don't get rid of it. Don't implement any of these rules. Just allow it as it is. If you want to tweak some little things like the odds of certain teams, or if you want to get rid of the whole, if you're a bottom 3 team, you get a surefire top 5 pick, I get that. But don't implement these rules that I've been talking about for the last half an hour, because those are what's bad for basketball. And in my opinion, those are what's going to take a lot of eyes off teams that usually aren't teams that have a huge fan base, like the Sacramento Kings. Me being a Sacramento Kings fan, it's not easy to watch Sacramento Kings games. They play late at night, and since I'm from the East Coast and now living in the Midwest, their games are still super late at night. They have never been a nationally televised team. So I have to go out of my way to actually go and watch this team. Now, if they don't get a top pick and they're sitting once again with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Domantas Sabonis, that team doesn't make me want to go watch them. If they get Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonta, yeah, that makes me want to go watch them because they have something to look forward to. Even if they're bad, once again, they have something to look forward to. The Wizards, they have a lot of young guys. They have, in my opinion, I like watching the Wizards games. I want to see how Keyshawn George is growing as a player, as Alex Sarr is growing as a player. But I don't want to see a team like the Pelicans, who don't even own their first-round pick, they're bad, or the Utah Jazz, who just sit like they... Keontae George, great player. Like to see what he's growing as. But some of these teams are a little bit different from the Kings, who the Kings are just a bad team, a bad organization that has nothing to look forward to right now. All of our best players are old, and they're aging, and we don't have really a super young guy that we're like, that's the future of our team. That's why this team needs 2 to maybe 3 years of high draft picks to get into a position where they're the next Detroit Pistons or the next San Antonio Spurs. That's what's good for basketball. Having that parity of this team after 3 years of being bad, they're finally good. They're finally getting it going. So that is tanking for the NBA. That's why it's important. And now we will move on to the contender levels. But we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk about the contending levels of all of the playoff and play-in teams in the NBA. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. This has been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSC. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSC. And like I said, right before we went to that quick commercial break, we were going to be talking about the contending levels of the teams in the playoffs and play-in. I did also add the Milwaukee Bucks, just because they are right outside the play-in. I think they're going to make it. And I didn't want to take a team out of the play-in that I don't think is going to make it for the Milwaukee Bucks, just in case they don't make it. So I do have 11 teams in the Eastern Conference, and I do have 10 teams in the Western Conference, just because I don't see Memphis or Dallas catching the Clippers for the play-in spot, that final play-in spot. So I have them split into 4 categories, and I'm going to start with the lowest category, which is might as well not show up. Now, this isn't for the fact that they're not going to be a fun team to watch in the play-in and playoffs, but this is more of a category of they don't really have a chance. So at the end of the day, you don't have a chance. There's really not a reason to be showing up. But I do want to see some of these teams in the playoffs. First off, the Portland Trailblazers. And these aren't in any sort of order. It's just how they came to my mind as I was writing it down. Portland Trailblazers. Really fun, young team. I would love to see this team make the playoffs. They would be the 8th seed at this point. So they would battle against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. Again, don't really see them winning that series. And also some of these play-in teams, most of these teams are, actually all these teams are in the play-in that are in this category. I just don't see them beating either one of the top 2 seeds in the West or the East. So that is something that you also got to pay attention to. But Portland, I want to see them make the playoffs. This is not a knock on the Portland Trailblazers. I've been a fan of them all year long. Thiago Splitter's doing what he can. They've dealt with injuries. They had a super hot start to the year. Also dealt with some off-the-court issues as well, and they could continue to battle. I want to see this team in the playoffs. Scoot Henderson, he's come back, and he's been pretty decent. Shaedon Sharp's going to be missing about a month and a half, so that's not great for them. He most likely will probably miss the playoffs and play in just because we're about a month and a half away from the playoffs. And they're a fun team, but I just don't see them beating either the Oklahoma City Thunder, or if they do jump up to be able to be a 7 seed, the San Antonio Spurs. Next up, the Los Angeles Clippers. In a transition period out of the Kawhi Leonard, James Harden era into a new era. They going to be a playing team. I think they can maybe win. They could give Oklahoma City a run for their money, I think. But at the end of the day, they just don't really have a chance. They have a slight chance just because they have Kawhi Leonard on their team. But if Kawhi Leonard's not playing at the end of the season, it might be kind of likely, they have no chance. Next up, the Miami Heat. They're still a good team. They still got Eric Spoelstra, but this is not the Eastern Conference that they were the 8th seed and they went to the finals with. They also just not the same team in general. They don't have Jimmy Butler no more. They have great players. Bam Adebayo, I love him. Tyler Hero, I love him as a player. Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell. They have a great team. They're just not as talented. They need a star. That's what they're looking for this offseason, so they don't really have a chance. Atlanta, in my opinion, Atlanta, out of all the play-in teams, is the team that could fall out in place of the Milwaukee Bucks. But in that case, they don't have a chance whatsoever. Jalen Johnson would be fun to see in the playoffs in a fun one-game elimination, see what he's going to do, takeover mode. Jonathan Kuminga's been hooping since he came back. Actually, he might have only played one game so far. I don't know. But he was cooking in his debut. So, again, another fun team. Would like to see them in the playoffs with a new era in Atlanta. But at the end of the day, they don't have a chance at winning the NBA Finals. The Charlotte Hornets, right now sitting at the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. I am slowly becoming a huge fan of the Charlotte Hornets. The last couple of years, I have not been a huge fan of LaMelo Ball. I did really like Brandon Miller coming out of college, out of Alabama, and I think he's still is a future all-star in the NBA. Con Knipple has really changed how I look at this team. Since 2026 started, the top three-point leaders in the NBA for makes is LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knipple. This team has a high-powered offense. Con Knipple just broke the rookie three-point record in 60 games, which is crazy. Shout out my boy Keegan Murray for having it for 3 years before Con Knipple came in and broke it. But, again, they're a fun team. Would love to see this team in the playoffs. This is like the Portland Trailblazers of the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Portland and Charlotte, they're both sitting at the 9 and 10 seed in their respective conferences. I want to see these teams in the playoffs. Even if they get swept by whoever they play, I just still think the games will be entertaining, and it's always good to have a new team, a bunch of new faces in the playoffs battling. And Charlotte right now, if they were to make the playoffs, they would have to be the 8th seed, which would lead them to play the Detroit Pistons at this time, which that would be a fun series to watch. Great defensive team versus a great offensive team. LaMelo versus Cade. The bad blood that they have, that would be a super fun series to watch. But, again, no chance for the Charlotte Hornets to win this finals this year. And the last team in the category is the Milwaukee Bucks. If they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously they have a little bit of a chance, but it's whether Giannis is on the court, to be honest. But they're sitting at the 11th seed, so they might not even be in the play-in and have a chance to make the playoffs. So, again, they're just might as well not show up team. because they aren't going to win the finals this year. Next up, the frisky but no chance team. First up, the Philadelphia 76ers. This team is going to be an interesting team to watch in the playoffs. I think they could take the first round series, which would be right now against the New York Knicks. I think they could beat them. But Detroit, Boston, I think that's where their run would end eventually. But they are a frisky team. I think they could get out of the first round. I think they will be able to take some teams and make a series out of whatever they're in. But it will be difficult for them, and especially for this Philadelphia 76ers team, if at any point Joel Embiid misses a little bit of time in the playoffs, if Tyrese Maxey misses a little bit of time in the playoffs, this team goes completely downhill. But they still are a frisky team because I do like the energy and the effort they play with, along with the offensive upside. Next up, the frisky but no chance. This is going to feel like a little bit of a weird team to be in the frisky but no chance. That's the Los Angeles Lakers. They have Luka, they have LeBron, so they have a slight chance. But they're a frisky team. I think they can beat some teams. I think they could probably win their first round matchup, which right now would be the Houston Rockets. I think they can beat the Houston Rockets. But once they get to play a Minnesota Timberwolves, a Denver, a San Antonio, a OKC, that's where it goes downhill for this Lakers team. Teams that are super physical, have a big body to put at Luka, slow him down a little bit. I mean, you got DeAndre Ayton, who's just like, they're trying to make me play like Clint Capella. That's what you need to buy into right now. They have a lot of locker room turmoil at this point. And I think they can win a series or two, but not going to win the finals. Next up in the frisky but no chance, the Toronto Raptors. Again, another team that they play a really sound style of basketball, great defensive ability, some guys like Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes that can take over games. Think they can win a series, which right now would be Cleveland, which right now I don't see them beating Cleveland. But if they get the right matchup in the first round, I could maybe see them sneaking out a win. But it is going to be tough, and it's not a lock that they can make it out of the first round. So I put them as frisky because they think they can beat any team in the playoffs at any given moment. But I don't know how much I feel about them winning a series. Next up, Orlando. Now, Orlando, they feel like they're in the might as well not show up category, how they've been playing recently. But they do have Desmond Bane, they have Paolo, they have Franz, they have the defensive capabilities at times this year to shut the water off on a team. But then they also have games like last night where they played the Houston Rockets and they give up like a 20-point run where the game felt like it was basically over, and then there was a 20-point run out of the Houston Rockets and they lost the game. So Orlando, they might be in the might as well not show up category, but I did put them in the frisky but no chance just because I feel like they could win a first round series if they are able to jump to the 6th seed and they get to play the Knicks. But Orlando is a tough team to rank. Next up, Phoenix. Phoenix, in my opinion, might be a might as well not show up team, but they play some great defense in my opinion. And Dylan Brooks, if they get Devin Booker back in time for the playoffs, that is also something to watch out for. And they're kind of a tough team to rank. They've been frisky all year long. I don't know if they're necessarily the frisky team that can win a series, but I think they're a frisky team that can make a series worthwhile watching. So maybe they should be in the might as well not show up category, but I did put them in the frisky but no chance category. And the last team in this category is the Golden State Warriors. If Steph Curry's on your team, you always have a chance at winning a playoff series. Despite how old he is now, we've seen at times this season where he's dropped back-to-back 40-plus bombs on the San Antonio Spurs. He can win you a series. More than one series, I don't know, but he could definitely win you one series, and they're frisky. They play the Golden State Warriors style of basketball. When it's hot, and it's tough to shut the water off for them. But don't see them as a contender, but they are a frisky team in the playoffs. Next up, the contenders, but they're missing something right now. First up, the New York Knicks. They're missing Karl Anthony Towns being Karl Anthony Towns and being aggressive every single game and knowing his role as a center in the NBA. Karl Anthony Towns, you've been in the NBA for way too long. You've seen so many different looks, defensive schemes against you. You've played under so many different coaches. You know how to play NBA basketball. Buy into a role. Buy whatever Mike Brown wants you to be. If you want to win a championship in New York with your boys, come on, buy into it. Every time you have a bad game, you're always going, I don't know my role. But every time you have a good game, you're not saying, I don't know my role. So, come on, grow up. That's at the end of the day, Karl Anthony Towns needs to grow up. Stop with these terrible fouls and always throwing your arms up and having confused faces. You know what you do. Stop being so confused. You know what a foul is. Stop. This team, right now, until Karl Anthony Towns becomes the guy that we know him as, they are not contenders, in my opinion. They are labeled as contenders because if he can get it going, they are 100% a team that could win the Eastern Conference. But they're missing Karl Anthony Towns right now. Despite him being on the court, they're missing him right now. Next up, the Boston Celtics. I mean, it's easy. They're missing Tatum. They're still a great team without Jason Tatum, but if you add Jason Tatum to this team, they instantly become top of the contenders in the Eastern Conference if they get him back. With talks that he might be able to come back this weekend, which would be excellent for them, having a month and a half to build on to get ready for the playoffs. But as of right now, they're contenders. I wouldn't put my money on them, but because they are missing something right now. Next up, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They've been in the position where they have a chance to go to the finals and be a contender. I think they could do that once again this year, but they're missing a proven point guard. Ayo Dosunmu, I love the trade to get him. Dante DiVincenzo is still a great player, but they still are missing a true point guard on this team. And a little bit more bench pieces around Ayo Dosunmu and Naz Reid. But I do really like this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I think they can make a run once again to the Western Conference Finals. But I wouldn't label them as true contenders because they are missing that point guard position like they've missed all year long. Next up in the final in the contenders, but something's missing right now category, the Houston Rockets. They have Kevin Durant, which can win you any game every night, but they are missing, once again, a point guard, and that's Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams. Since Steven Adams gone down with his injury, their offense has struggled, and it struggled last night against the Orlando Magic until the Orlando Magic defense broke, and then that game just blew wide open, and Reed Shepherd went off in the second half, which if Reed Shepherd could do that, jump into the starting lineup, become that kind of guy, that's something that could maybe raise their contending level a little bit, but he's still a little bit small for the point guard position. He does have active hands, and he's a pretty underrated defender, but I think he would get hunted by star players on opposite teams in the playoffs. So not having Fred, not having Steven Adams, those are just two things right now that they're missing entirely. And until they get them back, I can't say that this team is going to win the championship. And then finally, the legit contenders. This team, all five of these teams can go and win the NBA championship this year. One, the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's not much to say. They've led the league all season long in the Western Conference. From game one, they've been in the 1 seed all year long. Despite injuries, they continue to win games. They continue to have one of the best defenses in the league. They're, at this point, still the team to beat, and they're still contenders. Next up, Detroit. Detroit, in my opinion, right now is a team that is going to come out of the Eastern Conference. I know they're missing some secondary creation and playmaking outside of Cade Cunningham, but this team is so good defensively, And everybody buys into the role of being a Detroit Pistons player. They come in, they play excellent for JB Bickerstaff. That's what you want to see for a true contending team. Detroit is still a legit contender. Next up, Cleveland. Cleveland has jumped back into the legit contenders category after getting James Harden. Now, James Harden's dealing with a fractured finger. It might be a thumb, I believe. But he is dealing with a fractured finger on his non-shooting hand, which is a plus that is not on his shooting hand. It's definitely gonna take some time for him to get used to, but he already said that he's gonna try and play through it and build up to the playoffs. So hopefully by the time we get to the playoffs, he's already kind of used to playing with a wrap on his hand. And James Harden's one of the best players the NBA seen ever as being a playmaker and a scorer. So I'm not worried about him having to build around an injury. I think he can do it, not having that load of being the number one guy anymore in Cleveland. So they are still true contenders to me. They have the great role players around everybody, and they have Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. They got people that are so difficult to guard on this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Next up, the Denver Nuggets. They have looked a little bit rocky since Jokic has come back. Now, Jokic is a little out of shape, you can just tell. It's going to take some time for him to get ramped back up, lose that baby fat that he gained when he missed all those games just a little bit ago. But Denver is still a contender. If you have the best player in the world on your team with Jamal Murray, who is a proven playoff performer, who is clutch in the playoffs, if they can get Aaron Gordon, if they can just get healthy for the playoffs, this team is still so good. They're still, in my opinion, the second best team in the Western Conference, and I think they have the second best odds, in my opinion, to win the finals coming out of the Western Conference. So they are still legit contenders when you have the best player in the world on your team that doesn't need to score 40 points per game to win you a playoff series. That is a legit contending team. And then the final legit contenders is the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, they've been dominant all year long. It still feels a little early to me in their kind of stepping stones. They've kind of just leapfrogged up until the fact of being a contending team. But having Victor Wembanyama and having all the pieces around him, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, this team is incredible. They've beat the Pacers, or they beat the Pistons, they beat the Thunder. So they have proven that they can beat the teams that are legit contenders this year. The only thing I'm worried about with the San Antonio Spurs team is the fact that we have seen some teams be able to game plan against Victor Wembanyama a little bit, and the physicality does get in Victor Wembanyama's head a little bit throughout a game. And I think for them to 100% have a chance at winning the finals, being in the NBA Finals, he has to block out all the noise, which can be very difficult for a player that's in their first ever playoff series and their first ever postseason action. And I'm worried about the youth around everybody else. Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, at times this team has struggled shooting the basketball, and that comes with time and age and veteran leadership on the court. They're still a great team. They win games without Victor Wembanyama, which is incredible. But I do have some worries about this team, but I still think they are legit contenders. And there's really not a way that you can't say they are, because they're 4-1 against the defending champions in the Oklahoma City Thunder this year, which, yes, they might not have been healthy 100% for all those games, but neither were the Spurs. So this team is legit. It's crazy that they're already legit once again after losing Pop in the offseason. They're in a new era, the Mitch Johnson era, he's just been incredible, and Victor Wembanyama is becoming one of the best players in the world. So this San Antonio Spurs team is legit. Now, that has been Beyond the Scoreboard. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening. Stay tuned. We've got another show coming up right after. If you want to listen to a little bit of hockey, go and listen to that with Jay Sullivan. And now, this is the end of the show. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSC, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons.